In the New York of the 1870s, high society is a good thing, and it runs on the same rules every single season. Young lawyer Newland Archer is living exactly the life this world has prepared for him. He is engaged to May Welland, a woman who is beautiful, gentle, and exactly what society approves of. Everything is set to go according to plan, until May's cousin returns to the city. Her name is Countess Ellen Olenska. She has fled a scandalous marriage, lived in Europe, and her speech, her laugh, even the way she dresses feel foreign to this world. Before Newland Archer can decide which woman he wants to spend his life with, he will have to decide what kind of life he actually wants to live. Here is the story. First, the author. Edith Wharton was born in 1862 into the very same upper-class New York world she would later write about. Her family was as wealthy and as bound by rules as the world in her novel, the same world of strict calling card etiquette, carefully ranked dinner invitations, and unspoken codes of behavior that she would later dissect on the page. She married young, but the marriage never truly satisfied her, and years later she divorced. Unlike most women of her time, Wharton pursued writing as a serious profession, and over time she became one of America's most respected novelists. Before this novel, she had even published a book on architecture and interior design, which may be one reason her rooms, houses, and furniture are described with such precision. In her hands, the decoration of a drawing room becomes a quiet language that reveals a character's social standing. She wrote The Age of Innocence in her 50s, in the years right after the First World War. She had spent the war years in Europe, in the middle of its devastation, and that experience pulled her, in a strange way, back toward the past, toward the New York of her own childhood. In her own words, writing this novel felt like escaping into an America that had already vanished. The novel was published in October of 1920. The following year, in 1921, Wharton won the Pulitzer Prize for it, becoming the first woman ever to receive that award. One curious detail: the jury had initially chosen another writer, Sinclair Lewis, for the prize, but the overseeing board overturned that choice for political reasons and gave the award to Wharton instead. By the time she wrote this book, Wharton knew the New York of her own youth was entirely gone. The war had swept away whatever remained of that old world. So in a sense, the novel is not a complaint, but a farewell letter, both critical and full of affection, addressed to a vanished world. So what actually happens in the book?
The novel opens at the opera, during a performance where watching the audience matters as much as watching the stage, and it is there, in full view of the whole room, that Ellen Olenska first appears. Newland Archer belongs to one of New York's best families, and he is engaged to May Welland, a woman who seems, on the surface, to be exactly what this world wants: beautiful, well-mannered, and correct in every way. But everything shifts when May's cousin, Ellen Olenska, returns to the city. Ellen had married a Polish count, but the marriage turned unhappy, and she has left her husband and come back to New York. In this society, at this time, that is nearly an unforgivable thing to do. The people around Ellen prefer to keep their distance from her, since her very presence carries a whiff of scandal. But family pressure forces Newland Archer to defend her, even to offer her legal help. That closeness, over time, turns into an unexpected attraction. In Ellen, Archer finds something he cannot find in May: a woman who questions the rules, who has lived a different kind of life, who is entirely her own person. Through the novel, Archer finds himself caught not simply between two women, but between two different lives. One is the safe, predictable path that society approves of. The other is a passionate path that risks exclusion from everything he knows. As Wharton tells this story, she also paints, with great precision, the machinery of New York society itself. Who dines with whom, whose box at the opera sits where, whose divorce can be forgiven and whose cannot. Every one of these small details turns out to be a move in a much larger game of power. May seems passive at first glance, but as the novel goes on, we come to realize that she understands this game extremely well, perhaps better than anyone else in the story. As Archer's feelings for Ellen deepen, the invisible but iron rules of this society tighten around him as well.
The family elders, through a kind of silent agreement, take small but effective steps to keep Archer and Ellen apart. These steps never arrive as open threats or accusations. They come disguised as a dinner invitation, an early trip abroad, a family decision that looks ordinary but is in fact carefully calculated. This is exactly where Wharton's skill shows itself, because in this society no one raises their voice and no one forbids anything outright, yet everyone knows precisely where the line is drawn. I will stop here because the decision Archer eventually makes in this triangle and the quiet, devastating scene that closes the novel years later are the most striking parts of this book, and telling them here would rob you of the experience itself. What keeps the age of innocence alive today is a question that never really ages. What do we do when the life society expects of us collides with the life we actually want? Wharton tells this story not as a romantic escape fantasy, but through sharp, unsentimental observation. She makes no one a villain. Neither May, nor Ellen, nor Archer is a simple hero or enemy. Every one of them behaves reasonably within their own frame of reference, which is precisely why the novel refuses to hand the reader an easy villain to blame. That is exactly what makes the novel feel familiar even a century later, since people today still navigate similar tensions between family expectation, social status, and personal desire. The invisible rules that social media, careers, or extended families impose on us today do not, in the end, work so differently from the glances exchanged in Wharton's opera boxes. The novel also continues to be debated because of May Welland, a character who seems to sit quietly in the background. Readers and critics still disagree about whether she is genuinely innocent or quietly and brilliantly playing a game to protect her own future. A few more interesting details. Some researchers believe Wharton drew on her own extended family when creating the character of Mrs. Manson Mingott, and that the famous English phrase about keeping up with one's neighbors grew out of the lifestyle of Wharton's own relatives. The novel has been adapted for the screen more than once. A Hollywood film was made in 1934, but the best-known version is director Martin Scorsese's 1993 adaptation. Scorsese, known for his gangster films, surprised many people at the time by taking on a society drama instead. The film received Academy Award nominations and introduced Wharton's novel to an entirely new generation. Around 2025, there has also been talk of a new series adaptation, which shows how fresh this century-old novel still feels to modern audiences. Because Wharton herself came from inside this very society, even the smallest detail in the book, which fork to use, which calling card was proper, how many servants a household kept, is drawn from direct observation rather than invention, which is why historians still read the novel today as a near-documentary record of that era's manners. We have covered The Age of Innocence, the story of a man who chose to live inside the rules, and perhaps a heart that always felt like its real life was waiting behind a closed door. If you would like to listen to the complete book as an audiobook, you will find the link in the description. Subscribe for more books in this series. Until the next one, remember what Wharton's characters eventually learn. Sometimes the greatest courage is choosing to do nothing at all.